And we have about 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide in the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer and engineer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 now, past the hour of 12 noon on this Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Lake effect snow has moved out of southeast Wisconsin. Partly sunny skies across most of the state. Good winter driving conditions. Just a little seasonal January coldness. Nothing to worry about. Great day to have you along. Big show today. Coming up at 12:30, Jack Kelly talking about his brand new article at wisconsinwatch.org. Yes, I know. We're still kind of getting over the effects of one big election. But there's another one on the way. And perhaps even more pivotal if you're a Wisconsinite. Jack Kelly will be in talking about his article entitled "Another Pivotal Wisconsin Supreme Court Election Offers Two Familiar Outcomes." He will lay it out for us coming up at 12:30 on the program. A little after 1 o'clock, another edition of What's Worse. Your chance to call in and weigh in on the lighter pressing issues of the day. Always a lot of fun. And speaking of fun, our very own Civic Media's Luke Mathers in at 1:30 on this Tuesday to make room for Jack Kelly at 12:30. We appreciate that. Luke being flexible. Well, I don't know. I don't have first. I just heard he's flexible when it comes to scheduling. Luke Mathers in at 1:30 Tuesday Tangents with Luke. We'll find out what's grinding Luke's gears coming up at 1:30 as well. Mr. Summers, did you watch any of the men's Wisconsin basketball game last night?
I did not.
It was fantastic. Got a big win over Rutgers. They looked good. Struggled a little bit here and there, but they led from tip-off to finish. Got a nice win on the road at Rutgers. So Wisconsin off to a great start once again here. And they will play once again on a Friday at home as the Golden Gophers come to town. And speaking of the Gophers, I stayed around on I think it was FX1, which the game was on last night on television, and I was listening to Matt LePay on the radio side and some of our Civic Media stations, by the way, via the Civic Media app for free. But then I stayed around on television and watched the Gophers last night in Ohio State. They literally just, what happened was that over time, the player, the team thought that they were up by 3. They were only up by 2 and fouled and ended up losing the game. It was not pretty at all.
That's brutal.
So the wounded Gophers will make their way into the Kohl Center on Friday. Broadcast time starts at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Again, men's basketball across Wisconsin can be heard on the Civic Media stations in Amory, Wisconsin Rapids, Racine, Kenosha, and Richland Center. And then tonight, coming up on a couple of those same stations, Amory, Wisconsin Rapids, Richland Center, at 7:40 tonight, Wisconsin women's basketball taking on the Washington Huskies, going all the way out there to the state of Washington in the new Big Ten. And in case you hadn't heard, of course, the Packers play the Eagles. Broadcast time starts at 1 o'clock, kickoff time at 3 on select Civic media stations. So there's your quick sports update to start the show. Lots to get to today, so let's get right into it. At 10 minutes after the hour of 12 noon, we spent time yesterday appropriately remembering January 6th. tragic day 4 years ago, the will of the people was attempted to be undone by insurrectionists that were instigated by Donald Trump. That's not my opinion. That's the facts as laid out in the bipartisan January 6th committee after having the hearings and taking testimony, much of which was from Trump or former Trump employees within the White House and cops, Capitol Police officers. As I've said on this program, as someone who was once the chair of the Public Safety Committee on the City Council that oversaw police and fire, I have a lot of I admired the cops a lot, law enforcement officers, EMS, firefighters, all the public safety people that keep us safe. And of course, like radio broadcasters or teachers or chefs or any other vocation, law enforcement and public service people, also you always get a couple of bad apples. And there are certainly areas in which, like all vocations, those areas can be improved. But by and large, I have long stood, just like I stand with our military folks, people who put on uniforms and throw themselves into harm's way for you and I are extraordinary people. And they have my admiration. That was the word I was trying to think about earlier. Mad cow. Sorry about that. And so we spent time, we heard from former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, which was on this program back in June. And we're going to hear from him in a moment once again. And yesterday, on a great site called Wisconsin Examiner, great journalism there at Wisconsin Examiner, headline reads, Wisconsin Supreme Court candidate comes to the defense of January 6th insurrectionists. Well, you think, okay, well, if you're of a certain ilk, well, see, the liberals want to defend. No. I'm not talking about the liberal candidate for Supreme Court in April. This happened on Thursday, by the way. And, I guess there was other things going on. I don't listen, as it turns out, to a lot of Vicki McKenna, the conservative talk radio show here in Madison and Milwaukee, locally on WIBA in Madison, on, I guess, ISN in Milwaukee. I don't listen to them a lot, as it turns out. I tune in once in a while, but I don't, just to see what's going on. But over on Vicki McKenna's show, she had on the conservative candidate on her iHeart Radio podcast on Thursday afternoon, former Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimmel, who is running in the April election for a seat in the state's highest court. And they were complaining that the January 6th defendants, quote, never got a fair shot, unquote, in court, and accused Democrats of abusing the court system for political gain. McKenna and Schimmel agreed that Democrats are guilty of, quote-unquote, lawfare, political warfare via the courts. But it was Schimmel who specifically brought up January 6th. We don't play Vicki McKenna a lot on this show, but we have to credit where the audio came from. This is from iHeartRadio, Vicki McKenna's show last Thursday. Former Wisconsin Attorney General, Republican Brad Schimmel on January 6th.
The same thing for these January 6th defendants who were all prosecuted in the Washington, D.C. district, which is overwhelmingly liberal. This part of the manipulation is to go to districts like that. They would never take their prosecution in a district where you had a fair shot as a defendant.
Overwhelmingly liberal. Really, Brad? Really? These are people who were arrested, accused, were tried with a jury of their peers, went through voir dire, which is vetting during the process, discovery, were afforded every legal right under the Constitution. And the evidence was overwhelming, one of which we talked about in this program a long time ago, was from Wisconsin. The guy used bear spray, not pepper spray, bear spray, spraying it directly into the face of Capitol Police officers. Direct assaulting of Capitol Police officers. And Brad Schimmel, who was once, quote unquote, Wisconsin's top cop, is coming to the defense of criminals, convicted criminals sitting in prison who were found guilty through overwhelming evidence, and some of them confessed, by the way, to attacking cops, and Brad Schimmel doesn't think they got a fair trial. And apparently is on board with Donald Trump pardoning these people and putting them back on the streets. For a guy and a party who likes to yell ad nauseum, back the blue, what up, Brad Schimmel? Why don't you want to back the blue? Republicans across the country have hopped on the bandwagon to, quote-unquote, flip the script of January 6th. New York Times reported in a long article detailing how Trump and his supporters, quote, laundered the history of January 6th, turning a political nightmare into a political asset, unquote. 2 weeks from now, the piece points out, Trump will take the oath of office on the very spot where his followers stormed the Capitol, kicked and stomped a police officer, beat another officer with an American flagpole, and broke into the building, vowing to attack and kill the officials who were there to certify the election Trump lost. Oh, footnote, Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, a Democrat who lost the last election, peacefully, calmly, and appropriately presided over that same ceremony yesterday in the same Capitol without incident. Former Republican Vice President Mike Pence, Vice President to Donald Trump, actually went on Twitter yesterday to say how much he admired her and how notable it was. Schimmel's comments stand out, according to this article in the Wisconsin Examiner, for a Supreme Court candidate to suggest that jury trials don't work and that the whole U.S. system of justice is so polarized it can't be trusted is deeply undermining of the very institution Schimmel proposes to join. We got time for the done clip, or we come back, Summers? All right, we come back. Because we're less than, 24 hours. We played this for you yesterday. Harry Dunn, a Capitol police officer, addressing what Schimmel is saying here. Brad Schimmel, and by the way, I've got a story about Brad Schimmel. I've told it on this show before. I'll tell you an abbreviated version of it. Maybe on the other side. Has to do with voter ID and voter suppression issues. It was literally the reason I left the Republican Party. And they called me to the stand in a federal trial about 2 blocks from where I'm standing right now. Federal Judge Peterson. Courtroom was packed, press, other people. Brad Schimmel was so sure of himself that he didn't even question me or was there as the main attorney. He sent one of his minions to do it, as Mike Ellis was fond of saying. He botched that up because he didn't do his homework. Brad Schimmel, why are you not backing the blue? Come back. Talk about it after this. Your phone calls as well. 855-752-4842 is the Allbaugh Show for a Tuesday on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX.
Blind Shot Social Club, a perfect blend of cool, casual dining, indoor golf with space for events, craft cocktails, and non-alcoholic drinks too. A hidden gem on Madison's East Side. Blind Shot Social Club, open to everyone. BlindShotSocialClub.com.
There was a time when barbecue was perfect. A strong, reliable flavor that could be counted on. But then big manufacturers decided that barbecue needed to be zesty or spicy or sweeter or whatever. If you miss the good old days of great tasting barbecue, we'd like to introduce you to Grandpa's Barbecue. Made in small batches from Grandpa's original recipe. Buy yours online today at grandpasbarbecueshop.com.
I'm Dan Schaefer. Let's recombobulate. The beginning of the year means a new session for the Wisconsin State Legislature. Members of the State Senate and State Assembly were sworn into office on Monday, January 6th. There are a lot of new faces in that group, with 6 new members in the State Senate and 31 new representatives in the State Assembly. While Republicans will remain in the majority, that majority is now the smallest it has been in more than a decade. The days of the GOP's supermajority are over. After last year's elections under new, fairer maps, we'll see if those smaller majorities lead to more compromise in a legislature that's been dominated by the right for nearly 15 years. Just a handful of seats make the difference now between a Republican and Democratic majority, and there are many more opportunities now to bring accountability to legislators, especially those in competitive districts. And in a healthy democracy, that's the way things should be.
Find all of Dan's work at the Recombobulation Area and on our website at civicmedia.us.
Clothes that fit your style and your life. At Equability, they adapt your jackets, pants.
Wherever it may lead, and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 21 now past the hour of 12 noon on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Standing by in the green room after the 12:30 break, Jack Kelly of the WisconsinWatch.org talking about this Wisconsin Supreme Court race, has a great article on the broader sense of the race. But right now, previewing that with this article in the Wisconsin Examiner by Ruth Conniff, another great reporter, on these comments by former Wisconsin Attorney General Republican Brad Schimmel, who now, by the way, is a judge is down in, I think, Waukesha County, is the Republican, the conservative candidate for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court coming up in April. He went on Vicki McKenna's show, conservative right-wing talk radio, on Thursday and defended the January 6th insurrectionists, those who have been found guilty in a court of law, a court that he now wants to sit on, or at least the Wisconsin Supreme Court version of it, and insinuated that what they did in D.C. was completely not kosher. And again, I've tangentially gone up against this guy. It's not about me, but the quick story is when I witnessed the Wisconsin State Senate Republicans, my boss was the exception and a couple of others, try to get through these bills that were signed into law by Walker to suppress voting rights. It's why I left the Republican Party. Fast forward, I ended up as the lead witness in a trial of which Josh Call, who was only an attorney then, not attorney general, was leading the charge, called me as the first witness. And Brad Schimmel, then attorney general, sent one of his minions. And the guy gets up before Judge Peterson, federal judge, and says, Your Honor, our understanding is Mr. Allbaugh isn't even going to name names. It's all hearsay. I got on the stand and I named all the senators' names that I heard trying to suppress voting rights. They turned white, honestly. And the only thing they cross-examined, Schimmel was sitting behind him, and he looked like he was stunned. Obviously, he had not done his homework and got bad information. And the only cross-examination question they gave me to my testimony under oath was, can you remember the exact day this happened? I said, well, if I go back and look at my calendar, I could give it to you, but I think it was whatever the month was. The guy's arrogant. He doesn't do his homework. And even worse, he is now defending January 6th insurrectionists. This from from the United States, U.S. Attorney General's office. A Wisconsin man pleaded guilty today. By the way, this is from September of 2023. A Wisconsin man pleaded guilty today to a felony charge. Pleaded guilty. He was not, quote unquote, done in by some quote unquote liberal court. This guy pleaded guilty to federal charges related to his actions during the breach of the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Riley D. Casper, 24, of Pulaski, Wisconsin, pleaded guilty in district court in the District of Columbia to felony offense of assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees. According to court documents, on January 6, 2021, starting at approximately 1:50 in the afternoon, Casper sprayed an aerosol canister of what is believed to be pepper spray toward law enforcement officers attempting to secure the building and Capitol grounds. That day, Casper also communicated on social media with other individuals, declaring, among other things, and remember, this is him saying this, quote, I pepper sprayed 3 cops so badly they got undressed and went home. As you can see in that video, it was my group that busted the first gate and kept chasing the cops down and pushing them back at the Capitol. Unquote. Riley D. Casper, 24 of Pulaski, Wisconsin, who pleaded guilty to that charge. He said that. And Brad Schimmel has the audacity to say that that guy is innocent, that that guy got a raw deal, to defend that guy, and has the audacity to say crap like, oh, I backed the blue. And don't take it from me. This is a Capitol police officer we had on, Harry Dunn. This is what he has to say about this.
We can have those discussions later, but this is about what's right and wrong. Y'all watched on TV, y'all watched on live broadcast, people beating the crap out of police officers on behalf of the former president. And that's not speculation. That's not the left grandstanding. That is what happened. The people that were there on January 6th said that they were there because the former president told them to come there. They were there with the intentions of stopping the steal and stopping the certification of the election. I don't understand, just because, it makes your leader look bad, how can you downplay, deny that truth? Like that, I hate the whataboutisms, and they don't understand how two things can be true. Sure, you want to win the presidency, you want to be conservative, and you want to take away Roe v. Wade. That's fine. Like, I have my own opinions about that. But when it comes down to what happened that day, those people were sent to the Capitol by the former president to attack it and
Harry
to stop the delay.
Harry Dunn, Capitol police officer, former Capitol police officer who was on our program back in June. And Brad Schimmel doesn't want to defend him. He wants to defend guys like Riley Casper of Pulaski, Wisconsin, who admitted that they pepper sprayed with bear spray 3 of our cops, our men and women in uniform. And he has the audacity to say he wants to run now for Supreme Court to be a guy of the law, rule of law. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Gary in Sussex was first. Gary, I'm sorry, we're up against the clock. If you can make it quick, go ahead, Gary.
I can. I was watching Fox yesterday morning, and there was a guy on there that is facing 5 years in prison for the word impeding. He said that the cop said that he was among the crowd and he was impeding, and every single person that was there, 100,000, were impeding. So they just picked him, and out of the 1,600 people that they arrested, and he's facing 5 years in prison. Never went into the building, never hit anybody.
Okay, I'll give you, you know what, just to make, because I'm up against the clock, I'll give you that one. But agree or disagree, this guy, Casper, 24 Pulaski, and guys
I saw the spray.
Guys who like him, who pepper sprayed cops, do you think Schimmel should be defending him?
No.
Thank you.
I believe that
that's right there.
Smashed windows.
That's right.
And broke the law and pepper sprayed. No, he shouldn't.
You and I on that point
should be thrown in prison.
See, perfect. That's reasonable, Gary. That's reasonable. And I think voters in Wisconsin, even people who voted for Donald Trump, agree with Gary and me that people who attack cops should go to jail. And the fact that Brad Schimmel doesn't think that is disqualifying for Wisconsin Supreme Court. Back after this, talk with Jack Kelly on this same race. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show for Tuesday.
Conversation 92.7 WMDX. You can always continue the conversation on social media. Share your thoughts when you find and follow Civic Media on Facebook, X, and Instagram.
Butter consumption in the U.S. is at an all-time high. I'm Charity Becker for the Midwest Farm Report, and Wisconsin is one of the country's biggest dairy producers, and butter is a big part of that production. Wisconsin's Alice and Dairyland Haley Heinzel talks about Wisconsin's butter production.
Butter is made from simple ingredients, just cream and salt. And if you're buying unsalted butter, it is just 100% Wisconsin dairy. Our dairy cows make sure we have plenty of cream available to keep Wisconsin's 13 butter processing plants busy, making Wisconsin one of the top 2 butter producing states. All this butter finds its way to the grocery store shelves around the country, with the average American consuming 6.5 pounds of butter each year.
That's Haley Heinzel, Wisconsin's Alice in Dairyland. I'll look at your midday commodity markets right after this.
Just like some farm projects, they start out small, but they become gigantic. Bobcat Plus can relate. Bobcat Plus, Wisconsin's largest Bobcat dealer, has been in the family since 1991. They started out as one small dealer and now have grown to 6 locations: Butler, De Pere, Appleton, Eau Claire, Osseo, and their newest location, Kenosha. They offer new and used Bobcat equipment, parts and service, and rentals at every location.
Test 1 2
Test. Little loud.
A little loud.
Little loud.
Test 1 2 test. All right. All right.
Good.
Very good.
We're back. More Wisconsin Supreme Court.
Yeah. It never ends, folks. It never ends.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the thing when I talk to other reporters. It's like, you don't understand. Like, there's not an off year in Wisconsin. There's a Supreme Court race in 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30.
It's crazy. And I mean, this could very well be $100 million race.
I'm Charity Seebecker for the
You know, I think the last one was like 55 or 56.
Yeah, in the 50s.
This one will definitely hit 70.
Yeah.
From Chicago.
There's also
is trading at $4.55.
nothing else to spend money on in April of 2025. Like, if you're looking around, like where rich Democratic donors who are trying to bounce back from November going to spend their money, it's right here. Yeah. Especially you know, with just like the loopholes, like, you know, you can cut a check for $5 million to the state party, and then they can transfer it to Susan Crawford. He gets a cheaper rate to buy ads. Okay.
I'll take Mark's call here. He called in the last time, so we'll get his call, finish that up, and then we'll transition over to you.
Sounds great.
All right.
This is a sweet view.
I don't complain, you know, especially when it's snowing.
Yeah. You get the full Madison snow globe effect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I like it actually when it gets kind of like, you know, late afternoon, the overture center lights come on.
Yeah.
You know, then it's really cool.
That's cool.
I'm not on that time of day, but I always thought it'd be cool to turn the cameras toward that, so you kind of have like that city, you know, Madison downtown look, you know, on the camera. But we haven't done that yet.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
All right, so we'll do. I'll take Jack's call or Mark's call first, then we'll go into Jack.
Okay.
All right.
By the way, any song requests?
Oh God.
What do you want for walk-up music?
We have a little bit of time to think about it. So
okay.
Not a ton, like a minute. But.
You have a minute.
That's a long time in the journalism world.
Exactly.
No, dealer's choice is fine.
That's hilarious.
Too much pressure, and then if it's not good, we can blame you for it. So. I'm not Scott Bauer. I'm not a bastion of musical knowledge. So
that's great. Do our engineers know about that GBN deal?
I am spamming them.
Thank you. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 34 minutes now past the hour of 12 noon on this Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Talking about all things Wisconsin State Supreme Court race-wise in this hour. Yes, I know. We just got done with a major election, but guess what? It's part of living in Wisconsin. We are ground zero once again. Going to talk to Jack Kelly of Wisconsin Watch in just a moment. Want to finish up the callers on the line, talking last segment about the fact that one of the candidates, the conservative former Republican Attorney General Brad Schimmel, was on conservative talk radio in Madison and Milwaukee on Thursday defending the January 6th people who have been convicted in jail. This guy like Riley Casper, 24 of Pulaski. He admitted, he pleaded guilty. He wasn't a victim, quote unquote, of any sort of lawfare. That's the new Republican MAGA term for weaponizing the justice system. This guy pled guilty and posted on his own social medias, quote, "I pepper sprayed 3 cops so bad they got undressed and went home. As you can see in that video, it was my group that busted the first gate and kept chasing the cops down and pushing them back at the Capitol," unquote. That's what he wrote about himself and was convicted and sentenced in a federal court. And now Brad Schimmel, who has the audacity to run around with the rest of the MAGAs talking about backing the blue, doesn't do it indeed because he wants this guy who pled guilty to attacking a police officer to go free. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Mark in Prairie Stack, thanks for holding. Mark, what say you?
Yeah, well, it's no surprise that Brad Schimmel would do this. For our listener, Brad Schimmel was the guy who gave Scott Jensen an easy out, gave him a misdemeanor rather than a felony charge. So Scott Jensen continued to be a lobbyist, and little Mr. Schimmel probably gets plenty of money from the firm that from the outfit that Scott Jensen represents. When he goes to campaign for anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, Brad Schimmel is just disgusting in this case. I mean, I struggle to hearing this. I struggle to remain FCC compliant, and that,
please do.
And I wouldn't be if I met the guy face to face. But unfortunately, the guy is a judge, and if you get nailed in whatever county he's in, he'd probably hold that against you if you called the guy just exactly what he is to his face. Because this is just disgusting. Defending what happened on January 6th is just, like you said, it should be just completely disqualifying. And for Vicki McKenna to not call him out on this, to say this guy bragged, but he was bragging about assaulting police officers, right. And Brad Schimmel thinks that's the kind of guy that should get a pardon.
And maybe
he's been mistreated.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. Maybe Zommers, we can pull it up for later on the show. We interviewed Glenn Grothman, very conservative Republican, now congressman. I've known him since he was a state senator. Keep me honest, Zommers, if we could get it later on. We interviewed Congressman Grothman down to the RNC in Milwaukee this summer. And I believe he said, even Glenn Grothman said, yes, the people who attacked police officers should be in jail.
If I remember correctly, he said that. But
yes, we'll make sure that I'm keeping myself honest. Also, nobody better to do that than the great folks at Wisconsin Watch. You can find all of their work at wisconsinwatch.org. Great reporter Jack Kelly joining me here in studio. Jack, we don't get a lot of in-studio guests. I'm glad I put deodorant on today.
Well, I'm glad that you did that as well.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
How are your holidays?
Things were great. Yeah. A nice calm before the storm, as I'm sure we're going to get into.
Well, let's get right into it. You and I were talking before we went on the air that once again, Wisconsin's ground zero for yet another election. Explain to folks why that is.
Yeah, so April 1st, this is not a joke, we have another potentially majority shifting state Supreme Court election. So, of course, we are familiar with this from just a couple of years ago in 2023 when we saw Janet Protasiewicz and former Justice Dan Kelly have a pretty good knockdown dragout, which Protasiewicz ended up winning quite handedly to flip the state Supreme Court from conservative control to liberal control. And we have seen in a number of ways how influential that has been in Wisconsin politics. And that's potentially on the line again. Longtime Justice Ann Walsh Bradley is retiring. She's kind of
from Richland Center, by the way, my hometown.
Oh yeah. And she's kind of the court's liberal lion. She has anchored the majority for the last 2 years, but has been a liberal voice on the court for decades. And so there's a vacuum here. There are two sides that are very interested in feeling like their allies control the court, and I think we will see that as the race unfolds.
Again, all these stories, this one and others, great organization, wisconsinwatch.org. This one entitled "Another Pivotal Wisconsin Supreme Court Election Offers 2 Familiar Outcomes." Talking about the liberal justice or liberal candidate Susan Crawford, a Dane County judge endorsed by the court's 4 current liberal members, against former Attorney General Republican Brad Schimmel, who now serves in Waukesha County as a county judge. And neither party is really, it's always technically nonpartisan, quote unquote, but Democrats have come out for Crawford and Republicans have come out for Schimmel.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's the best way maybe to think about these races in your head are they are nonpartisan on paper only.
That's a good way to put it.
I mean, just looking back at 2023, the Democratic Party of Wisconsin was, I believe, Janet Protasewicz's biggest financial benefactor. They spent something like $10 million to help her get elected. I think we should expect a similar figure, if not a bigger one, this cycle on behalf of Susan Crawford. And Brad Schimmel, I mean, this is a guy who has been elected to statewide office before, maybe a little bit better equipped in the campaign than former Justice Dan Kelly was, who he was originally appointed to the court and has failed twice to get elected to a 10-year term. So, I mean, partisan haunches are definitely raised for this one, largely because of the court's influence and what control of the court means for Wisconsin politics.
And not just for Wisconsin, right? Because a lot of people are saying, well, why is this? Because $50-some-odd million were spent in the Protasewicz race. I think most people are predicting this one could top $100 million. And people are saying, why in the world would we do that? This is the first really big, high-profile campaign or race post November 5th, number one. And number two, guess what, folks? Wisconsin very likely will be again the swing state and ground zero for the 2028 presidential campaign. So controlling the court here is paramount to both sides.
Yeah, it definitely is. And just, this race is the first one in a series of races. We were talking about this before we came on air. Buckle up for judicial elections in Wisconsin, because not only are you going to be electing circuit court judges at the local level and appeals court judges, you're going to have a Supreme Court race to grapple with if you are a voter in 2025, 2026, 27, 28, 29, and 30. And so it's not going away. And so even though not all of these elections are potentially majority shifting, both sides are going to still be really invested in them, because the only thing better than a 4-3 majority is a 5-2 majority or a 6-1 majority, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to see a lot of spending and it's going to be a lot of noisy marches and early Aprils.
And I think a lot of voters, they're just like, I don't do Supreme Court races, i.e. I don't get involved. They're boring. I'm not sure what it really means. They're not the quote unquote politically sexy races. But you point out in this article at Wisconsin to Watch, this really means it has an effect on everyday Wisconsinites. Talk about a couple of these cases that you write about that stand out, where the liberal majority had an effect this last session.
Yeah, I mean, two of them really stand out, right? The court flips to being controlled by the liberal majority in August of 23. I was on your show shortly thereafter. They wasted no time in kind of remaking the court in their own image and the way that they wanted it to function. And then they started to pursue some really high profile cases. They took up a redistricting case throughout the state's gerrymandered voting districts. And I mean, we saw that yesterday when lawmakers were sworn in at the Capitol. Democrats picked up 14 seats across the two chambers and put themselves in striking distance potentially to win the majority in 2026. Under the old districts, that would have been virtually impossible. I mean, truly, pigs would fly. Some incredible things would have to happen for Democrats to have won under the old maps. Also, voting rights. I mean, this was very controversial. Just a couple of years ago, the then conservative-controlled Supreme Court said that you can't use unmanned absentee ballot drop boxes to return your ballot. Obviously, it became very popular during COVID. It was a way to return your ballot without having to interact with any other human beings. And the liberal court reversed that as well, saying that state law does not prohibit them, and clerks could use them. And so those are just two high-profile political ones, and they touch on many, many other things that maybe you wouldn't expect. The only two other cases that they settled for 3 last term, one was about whether or not Catholic Charities Bureau qualifies for an exemption from paying into the state's unemployment system. And then the final one was whether or not a small village, I think it was Egg Harbor in Door County, was allowed to use eminent domain to seize this sliver of land because they needed to build a sidewalk. People kept having traffic incidents right there. So
things are tight up there at Egg Harbor if you're trying to
They
go around.
are. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, the court can go from the most profound political questions to whether or not you can take this tiny sliver of land on the side of the road. But, it is really influential. I mean, we're going to see it in a lot of other things that are before the court right now. There's an abortion rights case. Obviously, that's one of the most personal issues to many folks. We have had questions about executive power and the separation of powers. We have another case, another piece of the same lawsuit actually coming up before the court again next week in terms of the way that the legislature is allowed to review certain executive branch functions. And so there's just so much that comes before the court. And as we see, the legislature and the governor continue to be at loggerheads on a lot of issues, the court's influence continues to rise because somebody has to answer the questions. And the way that the system works is that it's them. So we'll see a lot of this.
We're talking to Jack Kelly, reporter for Wisconsin Watch, wisconsinwatch.org, on this Supreme Court race coming up in Wisconsin in April. There will be no primary for this race because it's just the two candidates, correct? So,
as of right now, yes.
I mean, the filing deadline is, I guess, today at 5 o'clock.
Right.
So, unless somebody's out there really getting the signatures this afternoon, there will be, we'll go into that now, but there will be, it appears, if all the signatures are found valid, appears to be a primary for Wisconsin State School Superintendent. There may be 3 candidates for that, but on the Supreme Court side, it'll go right to April. I want to talk just a couple of minutes here about one of the things you write about in the article that I think is important because the narrative, and I know you're not here for partisan purposes, but I think the narrative on the right, having been a former Republican, is that, if you get Crawford in there, it's just going to be completely whatever the liberals want. But you point out in your article here, you say the majority of the court, being liberals, also declined to redraw Wisconsin's congressional maps, despite being prompted by Democratic-aligned law firms. So this court has not always done what the liberal side wants.
No, they haven't. That is true. Though, it's the congressional districts is a significant one. You have to take into the context what exactly are they doing. I mean, they put Dean Phillips on the primary ballot. Then candidate Joe Biden really did not want that. They declined to boot Jill Stein from the presidential ballot, the Green Party candidate, even though the DNC had asked them to. It's interesting. I think there are some folks in the world of Democratic politics and the kind of liberal legal world that would like to see them go farther, faster. The court's liberal majority is really marching at their own beat and doing things the way they want to, right? I mean, just looking at the redistricting case, they didn't say that they had to throw out the maps because partisan gerrymandering violates the Wisconsin Constitution. They threw them out on a technicality. Right. They didn't even consider that question in the lawsuit, which I'm sure the folks that filed the lawsuit would have wanted them to, and they would have wanted that ruling because it really would have, killed gerrymandering in Wisconsin for good unless, you had another court overturn the ruling. So, gerrymandering has ended for now, is what I always say, because it could always come back around. But yeah, it is interesting for sure. In all 14 cases this term, in the last term that they disposed of, the liberal justices voted together in all 14 of them. They didn't do that in previous terms when they were in minority. They would break with one another, and they didn't do this time around, though they did take far fewer cases than in previous terms. So
again, I know you're not here to be partisan and you don't have a crystal ball, but just based on your reporting and your experience looking at this court, do you think, this is a real question I hear from people around the state. Okay, well, if the court flips again, let's say that Crawford would lose this race and Schimmel gets in, and now it's a conservative court. We're going to come back and talk about Hagedorn maybe being, the Sandra Day O'Connor of Wisconsin, a flip vote here. But is there if the conservatives would retake the court, and you're reporting, do you get a sense that Republicans or conservatives could bring back a lawsuit to reverse the current maps or things like that?
It's hard to say for sure because with every lawsuit, looking at redistricting, for example, that comes, you check another one of the boxes of the things that you could challenge the maps on. And so it's hard to say for certain, but we live in Wisconsin. There are a lot of lawyers who are very clever here, so you never know.
As my old math teacher, Art Hitt, used to say, always possible. Come on back. Going to talk with Jack Kelly at wisconsinwatch.org. Your phone calls as well. 855-752-4842 is the Allbaugh Show for Tuesday on the Civic Media Radio Network. Excellent job. What a natural, ladies and gentlemen, this guy right here.
Well, Bob Woodward, ever since
We gotta get this. Will be one of our New Year's resolutions. More Jack in 2025.
I can yap.
Yeah, that's very good. Excellent.
I'm a reporter,
right? All right, so we'll take Lee's first, then we'll see if we have time to get to Bob.
All right. Oh, you said you're taking the calls?
Yeah, I'll take Lee's calls since he has a question for Jack. And we'll see if we get to Bob.
How long's our break here?
Another minute.
Okay.
Are
you prepared? Got the water bottle on the other.
Oh, well, get it. That's fine. You got time. You got plenty of time. Yeah. It's not gonna make you be dehydrated, Jack. Health is important here on the show.
The evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at.
All right. I found the Grothman interview. You had played it. You played it, so it's from the show. I couldn't find the audio in my email, and that's because you played it. You didn't send it to me. So I don't know exactly how long it is. Let me see here.
I don't want the whole interview. I just wanted to get to and we won't do it during this segment anyway, but if we get to it, we'd be an hour 2.
I'll try and find.
Yeah, I know I brought up January 6th because he couched it, and he was basically like, well, I think maybe some of these cases should be reexamined. I said, come on, Glenn, even you would. I mean, I know you pretty well. Wouldn't you agree that the people to attack cops should be? Well, yeah, I think that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find that in between the hours.
All right, thanks.
All right, 30 seconds.
All right, thanks. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show, the Civic Media Radio Network. It is now 9 before the hour of 1 o'clock. Coming up in hour 2, another look at what's worse. Your chance to call in on the lighter side of the news. And our own Luke Mathers at 1:30 with Tuesday Tangents with Lukester. Talking about the Brewers signing somebody to a minor league contract. That's good news. A Packer injury is bad news. All that and more coming up with Luke Mathers at 1:30. Right now, we are talking to the great Jack Kelly, great reporter at WisconsinWatch.org. Brand new article. You can check it out at WisconsinWatch.org on the pivotal Wisconsin Supreme Court race. That's right. Wisconsin voters were going to the ballots again on another major race coming up in April. 855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone lines back in the old home county of Richland, Yuba. Lee in Yuba, thanks for calling in. Lee, listening to WRCE in Richland Center. You have a question for Jack. Go ahead.
Not necessarily for him, although he's given some very good information. I wanted to compliment you on your program this morning. Very informative.
Thank you.
But you were talking earlier about people not being able to tell the truth. And I think we've got, with Trump, we've got the Antichrist in charge, and it's a shame that none of the Republicans that are running are able to tell the truth about anything. And I guess what fries me is that a lot of people want to make this a Christian nation when they don't know much about Christianity. I mean, they just it's just words that mean nothing.
Right.
But anyways, I think we've got a totally unstable bunch of people that are running for various offices, and we really need to do something to keep in touch and keep informed. And I appreciate everything you're doing to do that. So
thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the call. Thank you very much. 855-752-4842. Jack, I want to get back to this article again in Wisconsin Watch. And one of the really interesting parts about this article, and you laid out here so well, and people, I think, even I'm not forgotten about the guy, but you just don't hear about Brian Hagedorn, who, for those of us of a certain age, remember people like Sandra Day O'Connor and Justice Roberts, who were conservatives appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, but who would swing and vote with liberals on the court on certain issues. Kennedy, of course, was the deciding vote in marriage equality in the state, or in this country, rather. And you kind of have the same deal with Hagedorn on the Wisconsin State Supreme Court tell us, Jack Kelly, why is it that Hagedorn is rooting for Schimmel pretty hard because he becomes relevant again?
Well, if Brad Schimmel was elected, I think it would be pretty safe to say that of the justices, the one that would wield the most influence would be Brian Hagedorn. I mean, if you just look at the 3 court terms before the Liberals took control of the court, and I think it was something like 62 cases.
61, you write the article.
Yeah, that were settled 4-3 along, 4-3. So, very narrow decisions. And Hagedorn was in the 4-justice majority in 50 of them. Yeah, so there was only 11 times that he was not weighing in and helping shape the majority opinion in these cases. And that is really, really significant. And I mean, that is especially true when you look at the political cases, which are often the ones that garner the most attention. I think he was in the majority in 15 of the 16 of the political cases, and really, across the board was willing to go back and forth. Right, he ruled against Donald Trump's effort to overturn the 2020 election, siding with the liberal justices. He went along with his conservative colleagues to let a least change redistricting process happen after the 2020 census, and then ruled with his liberal colleagues to pick the maps that the governor drew, only to reverse. He ruled with his conservative colleagues on things like drop boxes. So he really does wield a lot of influence when conservatives are in the majority. And it's funny you said that, he is pretty low profile, as when it comes with the justices, especially recently. I mean, we've seen a lot of someone like Justice Jill Karofsky, who has been not combative but outspoken during hearings. She's definitely had some soundbite moments during oral arguments in court, and Hagedorn has not had that. Also, I've done a lot of reporting on kind of the internal feuds of the justices and the way that the court is run, and when I was on the program a year and a half ago talking about that, and Hagedorn will send an email from time to time to his colleagues talking about it, but for the most part stays out. He never engages with reporters like me, even when I reach out to talk to him.
No, doesn't want to talk.
No, and he doesn't, particularly doesn't want to comment about the affairs of the court. I believe he's a real institutionalist.
I'm just going to say that to me aligns with what a state and a national Supreme Court justice has traditionally been.
Yeah, it has. I mean, this court is unique in a lot of ways, and is very influential. And I think that, he, for the most part, tries to steer clear of some of the kind of internal power struggles, particularly right now between the liberal justices and the Chief Justice, and then Rebecca Bradley. So,
and he's not up until 2029 again, if he chooses to run.
That's right. I mean, that's the thing is these 10-year terms. Right. 10 years is an eternity in the world of politics in some ways. You can take stances and rule in certain ways, and I think the idea of a 10-year term is that you can take a stand that maybe it would be unpopular with your voting base, and 9 years later, people don't remember about it.
Now we have AI. Hey, chat, or whatever it is, tell me about his record. A couple of minutes left is all, Jack. It always goes way too fast. Again, this story is at wisconsinwatch.org. Anything I have not asked you that you think is important for our listeners to know in this article, or anything else in your reporting?
I just think that, this, when we talk about politics, we often talk about power. Right. Who has power, who doesn't, who can set the agenda, who's on the back burner. Right now in Wisconsin politics, one of the real centers of power in a way that we hadn't maybe seen previously has become the court. And I think that, voting for your state representative and your state senator, and they knock on your door, and that is really important, is obviously much more competitive now. These are 7 people who you probably don't know the names of, because not everybody's like you or me. And they're really important, and they can and do have a profound impact on your life. So this is an election to watch for sure.
April 1st, no joke. That's the Supreme Court race. Jack Kelly at Wisconsin Watch. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Back hour 2 after this on the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media.
Real news and great conversation. 92.7 WMDX. John Peterson and Gordy Young.
On our next show, Mike McCabe will join us.
He's talking about kids playing in mud and adults playing with power.
What does it mean?
The John and Gordy Show, weekday mornings 6 till 8.
Ever tried balancing a dozen eggs in one hand while hopping on one foot? Or maybe juggling cats while riding the unicycle. Sounds ridiculous, right? But guess what? That's exactly what texting while driving is like. Your human brain only has the capacity to focus on one thing at a time. So when you're behind the wheel, give driving your undivided attention.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
This is your local civic media radio station. Want to hear even more? Anytime? Find all of it at civicmedia.us. This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A civic media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. President-elect Trump and his attorneys scoring a legal win in the battle to keep special counsel Jack Smith from releasing a final report in the classified documents case.
The order from Judge Eileen Cannon says the Justice Department cannot release the special counsel's report until the appeals court above her weighs in. The fear expressed by lawyers for Trump's co-defendants in the classified documents case is that the release of Jack Smith's findings could threaten the rights of the two men who still face trial. Trump's attorneys say the report could also step on his rights as an incoming president. It's now unclear whether these issues can be fully resolved before Trump takes office in less than 2 weeks.
The president-elect held a press briefing earlier vowing to reverse President Biden's executive order that bans offshore oil and natural gas drilling when he takes office. Strong Santa Ana winds with gusts up to 100 miles per hour are expected in Southern California this week. That's raising the wildfire threat. This is ABC News.
Local radio for you and your community. It's Civic Media's mission with stations across Wisconsin. Find your favorites at civicmedia.us.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. New lawmakers have been sworn in, and the new legislative session has begun at the state capitol. And now a familiar name is representing a portion of Wisconsin. Lisa Hale has the story.
The 107th session of the Wisconsin legislature kicked off Monday with the inauguration of new state lawmakers. Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Rebecca Bradley swearing in the new members of the state assembly.
On a lighter note, I will note that Benjamin Franklin has joined the Wisconsin Assembly. So I would be remiss in not adding a fourth quote, words of wisdom to guide you all in your work. Well done is better than well said.
Benjamin Franklin is a new assembly member from De Pere. The Republican represents the 88th Assembly District, covering De Pere, Alloway, Bellevue, and a small part of Green Bay.
Meanwhile, Wisconsin gets a C for its gun laws. That's according to the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. But the balance of the legislature is changing, and some advocates hope gun laws get more attention. The center compares each state's gun laws with deadly outcomes. And according to Lindsay Nichols from the center, they find the same results every time. The stronger a state's gun laws, the lower the death rate. And the weaker the laws, the more people die.
We know that these gun laws work, and there really is no reason why legislators shouldn't be taking action to prevent these tragedies.
She says Wisconsin could benefit from banning assault rifles and large capacity magazines and could have a longer waiting period and red flag laws. Now, despite public pressure for new gun safety laws in 2020, Wisconsin has not passed any significant gun legislation in years. Democrats have tried unsuccessfully to introduce at least 30 gun safety measures since 2019. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. You're listening to 92.7 WMDX News.
The Badgers win on the road. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports. Men's college basketball, the Wisconsin Badgers with a Big Ten Conference win at Rutgers, 75-63. John Blackwell leading with 21 points. Head coach Greg Gard after the game.
We know we're always in for a battle when we come here. Life on the road in the Big Ten is very difficult. So when you can get road wins and lead wire to wire like we did, a really good team win, and obviously a lot of contributions from across the board.
NBA, the Bucks snapped a 2-game losing streak with a 128-104 decision over the Raptors in Toronto. Chris Middleton sitting out with ankle tendonitis. NFL, Matt LaFleur says that Packers wide receiver Christian Watson suffered a torn ACL in Sunday's loss to the Bears. Watson will spend the next year recovering.
I know he'll attack it the right way. He'll handle the adversity. It'll just be a bump in the road for him, and I think he'll come back better. That's just how he is built. That's how he's wired. There'll be good. It's just going to be down the road.
That's Matt LaFleur with sports. I'm Mike Clemens.
Your news, conversations, and a whole lot of fun. It's all on your local Civic Media radio station or the Civic Media app.
A mix of sun, clouds, and chilly temperatures today, with highs reaching the low 20s. Tonight, we'll have partly cloudy skies and crashing cold down to the single digits. And for tomorrow, with partly sunny skies, highs will only reach the upper teens, but feel more like the single digits. I'm meteorologist Brittany Merlot. Currently, it's 21.
Matt and Air on air. This shouldn't be a thing.
Hot Dr. Pepper is the hottest holiday drink, but is it any good?
Jane, I'd like to answer that question.
Yes.
No. Have you ever had a hot soda in your life?
Yes, they're terrible. You can also do apparently 80% eggnog and 20% Dr. Pepper.
Get out of my country.
Matt and Air on air. Weekdays at 11 on 92.7 WMDX and the Civic Media app. Nightlight with Pete Schwaba.
I drew my brother's name one year and we went to the mall and I said, hey, while you're in there, grab me a Christmas card. We're doing the gift exchange later. So he walks upstairs, gets the card, hands it to me. I sign it, Merry Christmas. Love, Pete. And that was my gift to him. And I made him pick out, pay for, and retrieve. He's like, you are the laziest, cheapest. It was.
He did say that. It'll take me a second to edit that.
That's fine. Thanks.
But yes.
Live from the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Todd Allbaugh, along with our outstanding producer and engineer, Mr. Aaron Zommers, on the board. It is 6 now, past the hour of 1 o'clock. Welcome into hour number 2 of the big program. It is Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite. Glad to have you along here. Coming up later this hour, our own Luke Mathers, Tuesday Tangents with Lukester. We have a What's Worse straight ahead as well. But right now, want to continue on with this kind of breaking story of the day. Maybe not breaking, but I consider it the top story of the day. And many thanks to Jack Kelly of WisconsinWatch.org, talking about his great piece on this very important critical race, Wisconsin State Supreme Court, coming up in April 1st, by the way. And also talking about this story in the Wisconsin Examiner by Ruth Conniff. And the comments by one of the candidates, Brad Schimmel, former Wisconsin Republican Attorney General, now a Waukesha County judge who is the conservative running for state Supreme Court. Schimmel on Thursday went on Vicki McKenna's conservative talk radio program and defended the January 6th insurrectionists. And we're not talking about people who were there. That's another level. These are guys like this guy Casper from Wisconsin, from Pulaski, who pled guilty and bragged on his social media that he pepper sprayed with bear spray 3 cops, Capitol police officers, and instigated and pushed the cops back and assaulted them. This is who Brad Schimmel wants to defend. Thinks they got a raw deal. Thinks the court system didn't work for them. By the way, another little tidbit in this article in the Wisconsin Examiner, Schimmel made government transparency a major talking point in his campaign to be the state's top lawyer, but then tried to hide records of a trip to a conference hosted by the controversial Alliance Defending Freedom, which the Southern Poverty Law Center has labeled an anti-gay hate group. And I'm not just talking about they got a problem with folks like me, the gays. This group, Alliance Defending Freedom, let me give you a little sample of these folks. They had a case where they defended a Tennessee-based Christian adoption agency that refused to work with Jewish prospective parents. These people think unless you're Christian, you shouldn't be adopting children. Jewish, out of luck. Muslim, absolutely not. Atheist, forget about it. You must be Christian in order to adopt a child, according to these people. Also commenting on an earlier case in South Carolina, this group, ADF, expressed support for an evangelical foster care provider in South Carolina that rejects Jewish prospective parents as well as LGBTQ people, atheists and other non-Christians. Thinks that we should recriminalize homosexual acts in the United States. Have a same-sex girlfriend, boyfriend, gay marriage, any of that, jail. Want to criminalize our sons and daughters, our nieces and nephews, our neighbors, our coworkers who happen to be gay. And that's who Brad Schimmel went down to have drinks with. And, oh, by the way, one of the main reasons he was there, went with a colleague from the State Department of Justice, attorney Micah Teslin, who, according to the New York Times, presented his, quote, legal strategy to end Roe. He proposed his idea for an abortion ban that sets a limit earlier than 20 weeks to undercut Roe more openly. Schimmel told McKenna that unlike liberal justices of the court, quote, I'm going to follow the law and the Constitution. That's something we're missing right now, unquote. His version of that, which apparently includes defending insurrectionists who attack our law enforcement officers and criminalizing our friends and neighbors who happen to be gay. And he wants to be on the state Supreme Court. This is, look, I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. But let me give my Democratic friends a little free advice here. You should have TV ads up yesterday on this stuff, asking Brad Schimmel why does he not back the blue? Forget about all this narrative about Act 10. It's too complicated. People don't understand it. If you want to win this, right? By the way, I think if the election were held today, Schimmel wins. Democrats and liberals and progressives need to get on your marker here and start running ads about this. Call Brad Schimmel out for not supporting law enforcement. Call him out for being extreme on adoption, extreme on trying to criminalize our friends and neighbors who happen to be gay. Because those are things that even soft Trump voters are going to reject. Not that I'm a political consultant anymore, but I'm just saying. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. I believe Bob and Waukesha, you've been waiting quite a while. Thanks for waiting, Bob. What say you?
Well, it's easy to see what Schimmel's doing. Trump and the MAGAs won Wisconsin, so he's running as a MAGA.
Absolutely.
And he makes sure they know he's a MAGA, because he figures if Trump won Wisconsin being a MAGA, he can win the Supreme Court by being a MAGA. And he's just, these Republicans are such hypocrites. I don't know how they get up in the morning and look themselves in the mirror. They're nothing but lying hypocrites.
The people that run, yeah, absolutely. But let me ask you this, Bob, quickly. I know some people that voted for Trump who might consider themselves MAGA, but this stuff that I'm talking about with Schimmel defending insurrectionists who attack cops, I think that's a bridge too far for at least some of this soft MAGAs. I think it's a huge mistake what he's doing politically.
Well, look at Ron Johnson. Ron Johnson said they were nothing but patriots that love their country.
Right.
It's the MAGA party.
Right.
That's
the
what
people.
it is.
The people
They
at the top. Yeah.
defend this. They defend this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How you can defend January 6th and be in our government, be a congressman or a senator, you don't belong in office.
Yeah, agreed. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Madison and WMDX. Joe in Madison, always a pleasure. Joe, what say you?
Well, I would agree with the previous caller. How can you defend anybody who says they back the blue, and clearly they're A-OK with people beating the blue.
Mhm.
Somebody who has in my extended family police officers, and the notion that they would be sprayed while doing their job, that they would be beaten while doing their job, that they would be ignored and disobeyed and disrespected in such a way just floors me. But what floors me even more is that any politician would come to their defense. I find that appalling. Obviously, they don't back the blue, and obviously the Dems do, because those people deserve prison time for what they did. I'd like to return to Mr. Schimmel on a couple of items that he has in his past that I just wanted to remind people of. When he was Attorney General previously, big money spent on swag or chum, whatever you might call it. He had gold-plated coins with his motto, KAED, kicking ass every day. How very cute.
I forgot about this. I appreciate you bringing it up. Go ahead.
Yeah, pistol cases, golf towels, and custom-made fortune cookies. I got this information from Shepherd Express. You can look it up. He spent his office spent $83,000 on these self-promotion items. What this has to do with being an attorney general, boy, I don't know. But here's what his response was when he was testifying before the Legislative Budget Committee. He didn't know what it cost. He didn't know. He didn't have any idea. It just doesn't go back to him. And the thing that is most egregious when I think about Brad Schimmel is the lousy, lousy action that he had in regard to the backlog of rape cases, information on rape cases that we had, backlog rape kits. So this guy, lying Brad, in April 2017 was called out by Political Fact Wisconsin. He said in his first 2 years of office that he had mission accomplished. And what he had done was tested only 9 rape kits and claimed it was hundreds that had been tested. Big old liar. Yeah. In addition, he got $7 million from a grant nationally for tests for the backlog, and still had thousands backlog. And he had the moniker Backlog Brad. When the guy can't even do his job, and when rapists may be still out on the street because the information isn't there to charge them, to do the investigations and charge them, that's criminal. Yeah. I'm sorry, that is criminal on the part of our Attorney General. So thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it, Todd.
Always appreciate you, Joe. Thank you so much. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. I appreciate Joe. He always has the facts, which he calls. And I forgot about that. Yeah, he used taxpayer money to make gold coins to promote himself. Not exactly fiscally conservative. By the way, if you have a radio show like this, find yourself a producer engineer like Zommers. Found that clip from past summer at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee. Congressman Glenn Grothman, conservative MAGA Republican, and I had a little discussion about attacking cops on January 6th.
You're a law and order guy. You're a back the blue guy. I mean, you got people, whether you say it was an insurrection or whatever you want to call it on January 6th, there were people who attacked law enforcement who were found guilty by their peers. In some places pled guilty. You're an attorney. You have a law degree. Those people are served in jail. Do you agree that they're American heroes and ought to be pardoned?
I don't think they're American heroes, but I think it's, I think what happened that day, the significance of it, can be exaggerated, and I don't think Donald Trump encouraged it. We know that Donald Trump actually
should they be pardoned, though?
Depends on the individual.
But the people who are on camera who are attacking...
Absolutely, but nobody's talking about pardoning them as far as I know.
Trump has said he wants to pardon all of them.
I would be surprised if that happens.
Glenn Grothman. Absolutely. Glenn Grothman, Republican congressman of Wisconsin, former state senator, says that for those caught on camera, for those who have overwhelming evidence for having attacked our law enforcement agency, absolutely they should stay in jail. But Brad Schimmel disagrees. If you're to the right of Glenn Grothman, you might not be right for the Wisconsin State Supreme Court. 855-752-4842. More phone calls on the other side. It's the Allbaugh Show on Civic Media's Radio Network.
Well, so far today's show is a scathing indictment of Brad Schimmel.
Look, we brought the receipts. You understand?
He left him. He shouldn't have left him sitting out if he didn't want us to bring him.
That's right.
Ridiculous. That crust.
Right, and they have
48 beers on tap and a great selection of wines.
And the atmosphere.
Not only is the restaurant gorgeous,
That room with the giant
windows that
windows.
open, and they won a Best of Madison Gold Award this year.
I love Sugar River
Pizza on Cabela Drive in Sun Prairie.
You took the words right out of my
mouth.
Yep. SugarRiverPizza.com.
Oh, so you have heard of it.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. The 2024 election was certified January 6th by Congress with no objections, accusations of fraud, or violent mobs. Why was it, well, blissfully boring? Vice President Kamala Harris handed each state's electoral college letters of certification to tellers who then read them out loud. When complete, the total was announced and Trump was declared the winner. The whole process took less than 30 minutes. What changed?
That's a
the
great
Electoral
text,
Count
Mike,
Reform
in
Act
Green Bay,
was
and we're gonna use
implemented,
that at
making
the
it
top of
harder
this
for
segment.
Congress to derail certification. Election rules were tightened in many states, but in battleground Michigan, where voter access was dramatically expanded, Trump won. After losing in 2020, he claimed widespread voter fraud in Detroit. Hand-counting activists have also been curiously silent. Were the voting machines different this time? Electronic ballot tabulators, the target of conspiracy theories and multi-million-dollar lawsuits, are still on the job and recognized as far more accurate and less costly than hand-counting. What about the legions of
30 seconds.
undocumented
Thank you.
immigrants Trump claimed?
Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Now I ain't saying she a gold digger, but she ain't messing with no broke. Get down, girl, gon' ahead, get down.
Here in the middle of the day,
Girl, gon' ahead, get down.
from Middle America, talking to the sensible middle of Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Glad to have you along. 21 past the hour of 1 o'clock on Tuesday, January 7th, 2025. Going to wrap this up, bring Luke Mathers on. So we also have a what's worse we got to get to, but this is a big story. And the mainstream media, the legacy media, they don't want to get down and talk about this. Talking about Brad Schimmel, Republican conservative candidate for Wisconsin State Supreme Court, saying on Vicki McKenna's show, on the Conservative Talk Radio show, that he wants to defend January 6th insurrectionists. Guys like this guy from Wisconsin, Casper, from Pulaski, Wisconsin, that pled guilty, that used bear spray to spray our law enforcement Capitol Police officers, and Brad Schimmel wants to defend them. We played the cut. Even Glenn Grothman, Republican congressman from Wisconsin, says he's not in favor of that. Yet Brad Schimmel is fine with it. Wants to play partisan politics. Caller up in Green Bay, listening on our great station, WGBW. Every single show that comes out of there, a winner. GBW, great station up there in Green Bay. Mike, listening on GBW, says, good day, Todd. Wonderful show as usual. Thank you for that. What I'm worried about in this Supreme Court race is that Democrats not having the correct messaging. I feel like my party gets way too far into the weeds and loses all but the most politically adept individuals, unquote. Mike, I cannot agree with you more. That is the text of the day.
Text of the year, maybe. And it's only January.
It's spot on. Look, I'm no Karl Rove. I'm no James Carville. I'm certainly no Trygve Olsen, but it's not hard to see where this race is going to go, and quickly. Here's what Republicans and Schimmel, here's the race they're going to run. They're going to put up TV ads because they're going to go through Crawford's records as a judge, and they'll exaggerate it. This is what the ad will be. Judge Crawford let out an illegal transsexual rapist onto the streets. We need to elect Wisconsin's top cop, who's tough on crime and who defended Americans voting. That's it. That's the whole race. And if Democrats try to play well, let's talk about Act 10 and how that affected public employees because it's really important to all of our friends and neighbors. Loser. Because the vast majority can't comprehend that easily. Look what happened in Wisconsin this last election. False, grotesque ads against transsexual people carried the day. And it was only when Tammy Baldwin stood up and said, "You're lying about my record," that helped her pull that out. And of course, all the other, the great legacy she has of being a United States Senator. Brad Schimmel has given Democrats a gift. He made a terrible political mistake by doing this, and Democrats need to get on this yesterday and start making this race about why doesn't Brad Schimmel back the blue? Why is he soft on crime? Why is he defending American terrorists on January 6th? And by the way, why is he also against Jewish people adopting? And why does he want to criminalize our friends and neighbors who happen to be gay? That's the race that Democrats should win or run, and they'd win. 855-752-4842. Wisco Paul. Wisco, thanks for calling in. If you can make it quick, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Thanks, Joe. You always have the facts. That's great. I'll make it quick. Schimmel is the same as Daleman. There's very little difference, and the Act 10 will not work like you say. But Daleman, Schimmel, Kelly, they're all the same. Not good for Wisconsin. Thanks, Todd.
Always appreciate you, Wisco. Thanks so much. 855-752-4842. Gene up in Eau Claire. Beautiful Eau Claire. Gene, thanks for calling in. What say you?
Outstanding show. Just outstanding. I recommend everybody who's listening share this with a friend and tell them to share it with their friends. This is outstanding reporting. Thank you so much, and I agree with you 100% on everything you said. Keep up the great work. Both of you guys, outstanding. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye.
You're amazing, Gene. We appreciate your listenership as always. 855-752-4842 up against the clock, but let's get one more in. WAUK Waukesha. Rick in Waukesha, what say you?
Is this me?
It is, Rick. You're on the air. If you make it quick, go ahead.
All right, Todd, I want to lighten things up a little bit. I got an opinion question.
All right.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but is it too early for Al Gore to jump in the race?
For what?
For president.
I think you're a little early.
Little early?
But I appreciate
the call.
We got
to get the name out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Rick, I appreciate the call. 855-752-4842. We're going to lighten things up a little bit in the next segment with Luke Mathers. We haven't gotten to what's worse yet. But I think that this, because we are right on the precipice, the cusp, whatever you want to say. I can't believe that our TVs and radios haven't been inundated with ads yet. But that's good news because the airwaves are still clear to get the truth out there about this guy Schimmel. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Andrew quickly, a little shoot. Andrew, we got about a minute left. Go ahead.
I want to know why January 6th is terrorist-driven, but yet you talk nothing about the disastrous Black Lives Matter movement and all that stuff. Why never talk apples to apples about the truth?
But do you I have the same question I have for one of our other callers. Do you feel like Glenn Grothman does that those who attacked police officers and either pled guilty or were proven beyond a shadow of a doubt to be guilty, do you think people that attack police officers should be in jail?
Yes, as a police officer, I absolutely do.
Yeah, then we agree with
on the
that.
Republican side, why not Black Lives Matter side? They burn cities down, and your side paid for them to stay out of jail.
It's not my side. I don't belong to any political party, and I have called out those who have attacked police officers. I have said on this program, and I'll say it to you, as someone who used to be the chair of a public safety commission for a city council, I have great admiration for law enforcement. I absolutely agree with you. Anybody who's attacking law enforcement like that, doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. But right now, the side who's attacking...
Why are you calling one terrorist? Why are you saying somebody that used the bear spray, they did it too? So why is one a terrorist, but the other side's not?
Because only one side's running for Supreme Court and is against police officers, and that's Brad Schimmel. Well, thanks for the call, Andrew. I appreciate it. 855-752-4842. And we've got Luke Mathers on the other side. And what's worse? Don't go anywhere.
That song ended 10 seconds earlier than I thought.
That was early. Luke Mathers.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Staff at Group Health Cooperative are working on unionizing. They filed paperwork with the National Labor Relations Board to have a union election. Lawyers for the potential union say right now 229 employees would be eligible to vote, but GHC is pushing to get that number up to 475. The union would represent staff at 7
That's
GHC.
exactly what I was
And
going
Wisconsin,
to do.
unlike 20 other states in the union, has no way for
We're getting a
voters
lot of calls
to
on the-
propose
on the
new
show
laws or
stuff,
referenda on the ballot. We've seen these laws come into play across the country, most often when voters have been approving abortion rights after the fall of Roe v. Wade. While Governor Tony Evers wants Wisconsinites to have those same opportunities. Lisa Hale has more.
Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers wants to give residents more say in creating laws. Evers announced his intention to include a mandate in the new state budget that would require state legislators to consider a constitutional amendment allowing voters to petition for ballot proposals.
Jesus
Residents would be able to petition to
Is that it?
repeal existing state
You
statutes
said it.
or create new ones.
The guy that
and
was
would
the
be
hero
able
of the
to place
playoffs.
binding
They signed the minor
referenda
league
on
deal.
the ballot.
Is that it?
It's no secret that since
no,
I
Jesus
took
Maid
office,
is the next
Republican
Jackson Trio.
legislators
Oh.
have
He's
repeatedly
like
ignored the will
16 or
of
17
people of
years old, and
Wisconsin,
he's
the majority
playing
of
lights out
whom
in the.
support proposals like restoring Roe and access to safe legal abortion, legalizing and taxing marijuana like we do alcohol, funding our public schools, and implementing common
name
sense
looks when
gun
you read it,
safety
it's
reform.
Governor Evers
layman's
proposed a
terms.
similar
Most
plan back in
Wisconsinites will probably read it as
2022
Jesus
after
Maid,
the
which is
overturning
just
of
funny.
Roe v. Wade temporarily
here it
triggered
is.
an abortion ban in the state.
Now, Republicans already
Jake
killed this proposal
Bowers.
once, and they
Oh,
have the
nice.
power to do it again. Senate Majority
Jake
Leader
Bowers,
Devin
not
LeMahieu
Christian
says
Watson.
any non-budgetary
baseman.
proposals
Why
included in the
wouldn't we have
budget
him on a
would be
deal? What the
removed.
heck?
Yeah.
I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. This is
We'll do what's
92.7
worse.
WMDX
We'll do grinding your
News.
gears. We'll have a drink.
On your entertainment beat, I'm Pete Schwaba. There was a lion's roar atop the box office this past weekend. Mufasa took first place on the big screen with a haul of just under 24 million. The Lion King prequel edged out Sonic the Hedgehog 3 on the last weekend of 2024. Sonic, which was tops last weekend over Mufasa, brought in just over 21 million for a second place, but out-earned
We're talking
Mufasa
about
over the
J6, and he's
traditional
like, well, what
3-day
about
weekend.
Black
Both
Lives
films are
Matter?
entering their fourth week of release.
I said I denounce anybody who attacks a police
surprise
officer.
hit that has pulled in about $70 million since its release.
Hey,
on
Eddie,
Christmas
let's
Day.
all go. Why are you only
talking about one? And you're like,
in
well,
Black
because
Lives Matter protests, they weren't attacking the police. The police were actually attacking them.
As it
That's kind
turns
of the
out.
whole reason behind
But he
the
asked
protests.
why are you calling out the January 6th people as terrorists and not Black Lives? Because only one candidate is defending the people that attack the police.
Right, if Brad Schimmel said that all of them are heroes or whatever, do we be talking about that
Yeah,
too?
talk about that too.
Weeknights from 6 to 8 p.m. on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Enjoying this local
All
program?
protesters
Find the
matter.
complete Civic Media lineup at
That's what they're getting at.
civicmedia.us
Essentially,
or
they just
the
want
Civic
they want to
Media app.
whitewash that too.
I would actually say
clouds,
all
and
protesters
chilly temperatures today.
don't
Highs
matter,
reaching
but
low
that's just
20s.
me.
Tonight we'll have partly cloudy skies and crashing cold down to
Todd
single
Allbaugh,
digits.
man of the people.
With partly sunny skies.
That's
and
not
we'll reach
constitutional.
I know I'm not saying people don't have a right to do it. I'm just saying the only in American history. I can think of two times in American history where mass protesting has led to actual legislative action, or at least had an effect on it. Women's suffrage and civil rights in the 1960s.
The John and Gordy Show.
You don't think the students' rights led to the fact that 18-year-olds can vote? Protest against Vietnam?
I don't. Students had a right to vote before Vietnam.
No, when did the 27th Amendment get passed? 72? 73?
That was something Eisenhower, a Republican, was pushing for.
Really? I thought it didn't happen until the 70s.
Weekday mornings.
Ask Siri.
We got a thing called the internet.
I don't think the 27th Amendment is the one that you think it is. It is. It forbids any changes to the salary of Congress members from taking effect until.
But you don't have to feel alone.
Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by
71.
the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad.
Okay, but
All right,
no, I think that's part of civil rights. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. 34 now past the hour, 1 o'clock on Tuesday, January 7th. If it's Tuesday, it must be Tuesday Tangents with Luke Mathers. An hour later than normal because Todd doesn't know how to schedule his own show. As it turns out. Well, you were very helpful, Luke Mathers. How are you? But number one, Happy
Doing
New
well,
Year.
Todd. Happy New Year.
And you were very kind to helping me book Jack Kelly. A great interview, by the way, from Wisconsin Watch at hour 1. And you said, what time? I said, well, either 12:30 tomorrow or Thursday, forgetting that was your slot. And you very kindly and humbly didn't say anything. And you booked Jack. And then I'm like, what the heck did I do?
I had a feeling that you were aware of what you were asking, but you
No,
know,
I wasn't. Are you
a
serious?
little behind the
Are you
scenes of how the
serious?
sausage got made.
Are
I was
you
like, all right,
serious?
12:30, those two times. I'll go
You
with it.
ask my friends and family. I'm rarely aware. But thank you for being flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's coming. It's going to be here before we know it, April 1st, and so it's definitely important. See, I didn't want to delay the.
It was
importance
and lots of
aspect.
people calling and listening. I thought it was a great segment to talk about because so few people are talking about in legacy media, and I know it gets overused now. But I think because of, and this is one of the many things I appreciate about civic media, not just my show, but all the other ones, is we actually have time to suss out and get into detail about really important things and bring the truth to our listeners across Wisconsin.
Yeah, and it's going to be here before we know it. So this isn't really something that I think there's a lot of people that are either through burnout or just unhappy with the results or the coverage or however you want to describe it of the political realm here in Wisconsin and the country as a whole, where they're kind of just tuning it out. Like we're seeing time and time again, like the president-elect got not that many more votes than he did in 2020 or 2016. And it seems like there was a general sitting at home on the couch this past November. And so there's a tune out effect. And I think there's plenty of people that are tuning it out, but for those that aren't, we got to be talking about these things because April 1st will be here before we know it. And there are stakes. Every single election has consequences.
Agreed.
And if you're not talking about it, that's not avoiding them. It's not going to prevent it from happening. Like April 1st, even before then, we're going to have a February primary. And it looks like there's going to be a statewide primary that night because of the Department of Public Instruction position that is up also on the ballot along with this state Supreme Court race. And layer on top of that, we now see the one of the first orders of business that the Republican lawmakers made in the new legislative session is they're going to try to put a constitutional amendment enshrining voter ID into Wisconsin's constitution. You know, the number one thing voters were calling for in November. The number one thing that voters were calling for. Yeah, I mean, all the exit polls, Todd, led that to be priority numero uno.
I think if we talk about that, I don't want to go too far down the road on this.
I
But
apologize.
No.
I do tend to have a tangent.
That's
here
the whole point of this segment, which I love. I'm just saying we brought up yesterday, or was it the day before? Yesterday, Monday, as it turns out, the start of the week. But I spent a lot of time on social media this weekend to kind of do things for the show, and there's just a lot of anger out there right now, and particularly about this upcoming inauguration and whatnot. Certainly, the person that I would have rather been elected president did not win. And so I get it as much as I can. I think what you just said, though, is a healthy way to channel that anger, that frustration, instead of just screeching and yelling and posting things. Why is it that people like to post things in their car? I guess I'm just too old. It's like there's a formula for these posts now.
The algorithms like it.
Yeah,
because
post it in your car, be very angry, swear a lot. But what you said, Luke, organize, activate, get people to the polls for April's election, because focus our whatever our emotions are, it's something where you could actually do something about it.
Yes. And especially for off-year elections, like the time and time again, you see the variance in turnout for these off-cycle elections, and that is going to be what the motivating factor is there, which is the reason why Republican lawmakers would put something like a constitutional amendment enshrining one of the strictest forms of voter ID that in the nation here in Wisconsin. You can see that their priorities are to try to juice turnout. It is why we've seen an uptick in not bipartisanship since 2018 when Governor Tony Evers was first elected, but this increase of ballot referendums to legislate. They're not trying to find compromise. Like, Wisconsin voters are clearly sending a message, but it's not being received well because this is the slimmest majority that Republican lawmakers have had here in Madison in 15 years. It is going to be very, very imperative for turnout if a constitutional amendment like that gets on the ballot for April 1st, because there's been just this uptick. I want to say 5 different constitutional ballot questions in the last year or two.
It's all to get people to the polls for certain reasons.
Exactly. And so it is the way that the Republicans are trying to enact their priorities rather than seek compromise, bipartisanship here at the Capitol.
And I think that what we talked about in the last hour and a half here is a way for at least some Republicans and Democrats to come together, because we played the cut from Glenn Grothman from this summer in Milwaukee at the RNC. Even Glenn Grothman said, look, if we have people that have attacked police officers, they should be in jail on January 6th. I think there's our quote-unquote soft Trump voters, in other words, people that voted for Trump but aren't hardline MAGA folks, who would say that's a bridge too far. You could then join with more liberal folks and all vote for Crawford in April, regardless of what your hardline political stance is, because that Schimmel is just too extreme. He's too extreme for, I think, the majority of Wisconsin voters.
Yeah. And so that topic, the discussion, the article over at Wisconsin Watch, your conversation with Jack Kelly, things like that need to start being talked about now, even though it's the first week of January. April 1st feels like we're going to have baseball by then.
I know.
It feels like forever away.
I know.
But it is going to be here before we know it. And so it was important to flip around my schedule.
All right, we're going to do what I appreciate. We're going to do exactly what our consultant Tony says I should not do, which is do 2 things at once. We have Luke Mathers. We're gonna weave it in. We're gonna do the weave. That's the new thing here. You got to do the weave. Time once again for What's Worse. Let's go.
This or that, this or that. Then of course the choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Time now for a Tuesday tangent edition of What's Worse. No prize money involved, only your chance, but not only your chance to have your voice heard across Wisconsin's largest privately owned radio network, Civic Media, all of our 11 talk news stations, every major media market, and of course on the Civic Media app. Download it for free on your Apple or Android device. Today is What's Worse, Lukester, junk mail, or spam? What's worse, junk mail or spam? 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. What's worse, junk mail or spam? I ask you, Luke Mathers.
So we're talking junk mail, like physically in my mailbox.
Yes.
Or spam in my email folder.
Yes.
I got to go hands down junk mail.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
The idea to me, I get frustrated. Some may even say that it grinds my gears when I at the end of the day, when I check the mailbox on my way home and into the house, the 3 or 4 things that I have in there are all credit card offers or whatever other various sorts of junk mail.
Victoria's Secret.
You hang on. You said junk mail. That's not junk mail. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. The missus. I don't think we get any of those ads. But no. But just the amount of things that pile up. We're relatively new homeowners, but we've been in the home for a number of years now. We still get mail to our house from the former people.
Really?
Like I'm very to an extreme degree. Like I had to send something back because it looked really important. Like just this week.
Well, open it up. Find your keepers.
No. It looked more like a bill kind of important thing rather than I want to keep that.
You
kind
don't
of
want
thing.
that.
No, I don't want that.
There's some business whose official address is still the place I live, which is a townhouse And it sounds like it was a shipping company based on the name. So I don't know how that was their business
Everybody's
address.
got that side hustle. Come on, Somers. Everybody's got the side hustle. I'm sure.
Also, talking about doing two things at once, and Tony, a different Tony, comments on YouTube. How dare you, sir?
Well, you know, we're ambidextrous. We can do we can do it with both hands. I guess. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, what's worse, junk mail or spam? 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. You can also text us on the Civic Media app. What's worse, junk mail or spam? Quickly, Zombers, what's the...
I say that junk mail is worse because as somebody who needs extra salt in my diet, spam is tasty.
All right.
But that's why I got the clarity of what spam we were talking about.
Actually, though, as far as, actually playing along with the question, I still say junk mail because with spam, click, delete.
Yeah, there's filters that you can put on your inboxes. There's all
not
that
smart. Carolyn in Heartland on AUK says junk mail as well. Alice, listening on WFHR. Great. I want to spend more time in Wisconsin Rapids this summer. It's such a beautiful
lovely.
station.
Right
Great
along the
people
river.
up there. Yeah. Alice in beautiful Cudahy says definitely spam. It keeps me online too long. Waste time. I can dispose of junk mail in 3 seconds. Please, it keeps my mailman in a job. Alice, I'm with you. 100%.
I just think of the environmental impact, though, of the junk mail. That's to me, I can delete the spam in seconds as well, but I don't have to feel bad about the 4 pieces of paper or cardboard because none of it's flimsy. It all comes in on heavy duty, durable stuff.
That reminds me of the line in Boston Legal when when an activist on the street asked Denny Crane, the character in Boston, played by the great William Shatner. She said, "Excuse me, sir, do you have 3 minutes for the environment?" And he said, "I don't have time. I'm too busy enjoying nature." Yes.
I will say, though, junk mail can lead to some funny moments. Like when we were getting all the political junk mail, and we got several different versions of a flyer that was printed in Florida on really nice paper. We looked into it about 10 policies that show why Kamala Harris is too extreme to be president. And first of all, not a single one was a policy. They were all quoting themselves on Twitter, but they all had different graphic design. They spent a lot of money on this, and we put them on our fridge.
What's worse, junk mail or spam? Mary in Tosa says spam is worse, more voluminous, and harder to dispose. A listener at WAUK, junk mail, especially around election time, to Zomer's point. Another listener at FHR in Wisconsin Rapids, junk mail can be recycled. It's paper. There, I agree with that.
It is paper, but it's just, I do recycle it too. I throw it in the recycling bin, but just the thought that the whole purpose of that one piece of junk mail, its entire reason for being to me is just to go into the recycling bin. Come on.
The process of shipping.
I'm very selfish about it. My time is more valuable than a tree. Just because junk mail takes up. I agree with Alice. I mean, I got to go through it. It clogs up my box. I can't find what I'm really looking for. I might accidentally click on something, God forbid. It's just terrible.
All of a sudden, a Nigerian prince is
I
well funded because Mr.
I can
Allbaugh.
only hope. Jeff Perry, our ongoing contributor on Facebook, says spam is worse. Junk mail is much easier to digest. Well, see, I agree. Spam is much worse.
All right.
Tony on YouTube also agrees.
Tony on YouTube, spam is worse.
Tony, you're far too online. See, I can understand that you're not a big fan of the spam. But...
Tyler in Columbia County, listening here on WMDX in Madison, email spam can get filtered. Junk mail is physical, but keeps the post office going. My trick from working mail, sort of at UW Stout, look for pre-sorted standard versus pre-sorted first class. Standard mail may not be forwarded even with a change of address. My bigger pet peeve or current resident.
Yeah, when they send spam, it's to Aaron Somers or current resident, and you know it's going to get sent to that address for eternity.
Forever. Just
See, I'm like Charlie Brown. I'm just happy I have a piece of mail. Somebody, I don't care if I'm the current resident. Oh, look, I got mail. I got a Valentine.
See,
somebody sent me something.
But it almost junk mail degrades that feeling, because to me it's
not when you don't get other letters.
It's Lucy pulling the football out from you, because really it's not a Valentine. It's not a piece of mail for you. It's an ad for LASIK eye surgery, and I don't need LASIK eye surgery.
I love when they send ads for like window replacement and house maintenance to apartments. It's like, this is not the right audience.
By the way, quickly update. Did you get your windows in? Did we ever resolve that?
I got a very nice
in your garage?
Yeah, it's all set.
Look, Luke's a homeowner.
That was like a month ago.
I know. I'm just catching up. It's been the holidays. We're going to come back, see what Luke's prediction is for the Packers, the Brewers, and also us grinding his gears. The Allbaugh Show with Luke Mathers on a Tuesday on the Civic Media. Ready to go.
Welcome to Madison's Real News and Great
I was surprised.
WMDX.
I think junk mail won, though.
It did. Junk mail clearly won. Sounds like the whole segment
was a cry.
Oh, was a cry for Todd to get handwritten fan mail.
Yeah, let's give out your
That's
personal address.
Exactly what it is, Tony. That's exactly what it is.
You need to open a P.O. box.
P.O. Box 123.
I'm all about that, by the way.
We should get a P.O. box
I
like
want-
in Hayward or
I
something.
get random things mailed to me here at the office, and it's weird. I have a
We've got
book on
mail,
my
too.
desk. I showed you that letter, didn't I?
Is a prescription
We'll cover this after the show.
Can I also see?
Yeah. It's people say I've been doing this now for 5 or 6 years. 5 years, 5.5 years now.
5 years.
It'll be 6 in March for me. Yeah.
6 in March.
Yeah. So almost
They
6
built
years.
the station around Luke.
I've been trapped inside the house. The call is coming from inside the house. People send me things like it's strange. I receive
Here's what the WSJ
like
had said after
pre-drafts of books that people are working on. That's something I've received. I've received actual
This could be a
books.
segment.
That's cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's long enough for a second.
It doesn't have to be. It just be.
What they just said.
What's
I
in
get nice
Luke's
cards.
junk
I
mail?
get like holiday cards. I've gotten holiday cards here at the station from people that I have no idea who they are. They just appreciated us.
Time once again to check out Luke's junk.
Mail.
His mail junk.
No,
I knew you were going to say that.
Jesus.
No, that's Jesus. Wrong number.
30 seconds.
We had a Jesus calling us yesterday.
And I just love how he
Jesus
definitely
made.
heard that when you were saying, like, hey, you got the wrong number.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show, Pacific Media Radio Network, 9 before the hour of 2 o'clock. Tony asking HR doesn't listen to the show, right? Yes, Jacqueline listens. Big fan. She's actually, she cares about college football. God love her. Big LSU fan.
Did the Tigers win? I don't know.
I don't know if they won their bowl game or not.
I'm just saying there's too much football. That's the worst part about it.
All
There's
right.
just the onslaught at the end of the year. Too many bowl mania games.
Luke Mathers is here for Tuesday Tangents with Luke. Always goes too quickly, Lukester. Let's get into a couple of quick things. Brewers news, according to the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, if I could talk, I only get paid to do it. They're bringing back a hitter who is behind one of the biggest playoff homers in a minor league deal. Why did I agree to participate in dry January? First baseman Jack Bowers.
I'm
signed
pretty sure
a-
it's Jake.
Jake, yes. I told you I need new glasses. Jake Bowers signed a minor league contract with an invitation to a major league spring training deal the team announced yesterday. This guy, we didn't hear a lot about him until the end of the year, but he looks like the real deal. I'm happy that they're giving him a chance.
Yeah. It's going to be exciting to see how the infield gets retooled for this upcoming season. Again, important to point out, expectations were extremely low for the Brewers last year. They exceeded them by being even in the playoffs. There was a lot of excitement there. The fact that Murph was able to do what he did last season with the team that he had then going into the season huge success. So I'm very
National
excited to
Manager
see,
of the Year.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what he gets to do this year. We're obviously making a number of roster moves. The infield's going to look a lot different, and I think that Bowers can definitely fill a need at first base. And now the fact that why can't I think of who just
Reese
left?
Hoskins?
No,
who
who
was-
just left for San Francisco?
Oh,
I know. I'm blanking on his name.
Willie
Adames,
Adames.
Willie.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I wanted
The
to say
old
Colton
man
Wong.
got one.
Yeah.
Woo!
But with Willie heading out to San Francisco, they're gonna see some of the options that they have at shortstop, and it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of combinations we put together in the infield for the Crew this upcoming season.
And the fact that he gets signed to a minor league contract, if he doesn't get picked up right away for a big league deal, as we found out this summer on our What Makes Wisconsin Great tour, you may see him up in Appleton with the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers.
Yeah,
you never know.
yeah. And so we've got a lot of young, exciting players. I mean, Jackson Churio, kind of just the tip of the iceberg. We got some other great young guys that are coming up through our system. So I think this will be good for the Brewers, and excited to see how Bowers gets to handle that option at spring training.
Great optimism with the Brewers. Remember, pitchers and catchers report next month. Can you believe
Look at
that? How about that?
I'm trying to get out to a couple spring training games.
Oh, are
this
you
year.
really?
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Optimistic season ahead for the Brewers. On the other end of the spectrum, Packer fans saddened by the news that Christian Watson has torn an ACL. His season is over.
Most of next season expected to be missed then as well, which is the real big bummer there.
Packers, of course, lose to Bears on Sunday, Luke, and now are the 7th seed and travel to number 3 seed, Philadelphia Eagles. The broadcast starts at 1 o'clock on select Civic Media stations. As Letterman says, I hope one of your stations have been selected. It has been if you're in Richland Center, Park Falls, and Racine and Kenosha. Pregame show at 1 o'clock, kickoff on Sunday on Fox at 3. I think the Packers are one and done in the playoffs.
Really?
Yep.
You think that? I mean, Jalen Hurts hasn't even been determined whether or not he's going to be playing. You think if we go up against Philly's backup quarterback?
All right, I'll give you that. But I don't know that. I hope that Love, it was just a stinger or whatever his head. But you got Watson, or excuse me, you got Malik Willis, the backup quarterback.
What you talking about,
Willis? I'm talking about some trouble. Both our quarterbacks have at least some form of hand injury. I thought the defense looked terrible for the most part on Sunday against the Bears. I just think the Packers are on the wrong side of the tracks. And they had such a great end of the season up until the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely an aspect of momentum that you don't want to see. I wish they could have finished the season strong. It is kind of almost funny, though, because, yes, the Bears break their losing streak against both the Packers and their 10-game losing streak in their season this year. But they end up with no difference in playoff result for us. We were still going to the playoffs.
Right.
Washington won their game, so we were still going to be the 7th seed, even if we did win.
Right.
And really the only outcome that changed is the Bears get a worse draft pick. It's honestly one of those just comical endings for the Chicago Bears because, you won your Super Bowl. You won 5 games for the season, the last one being against the Packers. Whoop-de-doo. I think that the Packers are going to kind of take this week to reevaluate. I think they got a shot going into Philly. Now, even with Hurts out, Saquon Barkley has been the most explosive, one of the, if not the most explosive offensive players this season. So it's going to be an uphill challenge. I don't want to discount that, but I think the Packers have a shot.
I saw a story earlier today that apparently Brian Gutekunst, general manager of the Packers, is trying to find somebody out there that can, a free agent they can bring in for a receiver this week. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. And there's a lot, again, Goody's been good at. He's been, I mean, the trade for Malik Willis, our season could be very similar to the Bears season this year. If Jordan Love misses 2 to 3 games to start off the year, and all of a sudden they got to dig themselves out of a hole, Malik Willis and that acquisition from Tennessee was what really set us up to be in the position that we are to go to the playoffs again. And I think that if there's anybody out there, Goody's going to be the one to be able to find him, and we'll see how it works.
Luke Mathers, what's grinding your gears?
What's grinding my gears? I mean, boy, everybody's circling back. You know how during the holidays, all the month of December, everybody's like, let's circle back in the new year. Everybody's circling back.
We've been here. We just been circling nothing.
It's circling back. It's just
we appreciate you being here, Luke Mathers. Get the job done.
Always a pleasure, Todd.
Luke Mathers, Aaron Zommers, of course, Jack Kelly for being on the show. All of your phone calls as well. We're out of time. Sorry, Jesse. We'll take your call tomorrow. Stay tuned. Maggie Dawn is next, followed by Mr. Adam Selvia and then Pete Schwabel. Whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. See you tomorrow with Trigby Olsen and Pat Kreitlow.
And your day will come. Keep banging on your drum, and they will hear you.
Yeah, I didn't play that music going in because with Luke here, I was like, all right, we're in hour 1.
I know.
And then halfway through the segment, I'm like, wait a second.
We're in hour 2. See, folks, we lose track. We have such a good time with Luke Mathers. We just lose track of time. Thank you, Luke.
Not a problem.
We appreciate it.
And see you all tomorrow.
All right. Adios. Bye-bye.